Stop. Right now, in this exact moment, someone is making money off your insecurity. Not maybe, not probably, definitely. And the worst part, you're helping them do it. But that's not even the disturbing part one need to tell you about. The disturbing part is this. There's a type of person emerging right now that entire industries are quietly terrified of. Not criminals, not revolutionaries, not protesters, just ordinary people who figured out one simple truth that dismantles everything. And if you're still watching 60 seconds from now, you might become one of them, which means you might never see the world the same way again. Fair warning. Let me paint you a picture of something happening right now that nobody's talking about. Somewhere right this second, there's a man sitting in a corporate boardroom, and he's completely calm. Not because he's confident in his job, but because he genuinely doesn't care if he loses it. His boss is throwing around subtle threats, the kind that usually make employees shrink. The "we need team players" talk, that others would kill for this opportunity speech, the "think carefully about your future here" warning. And this man, he's just sitting there, relaxed, almost amused, because he did something radical, something the system never expected. He made himself free, not rich, free. There's a catastrophic difference, and nobody explains it. Now his boss is confused, then irritated, then something else entirely, scared, because every tool in the manipulation playbook just stopped working. You can't threaten someone who isn't afraid. You can't bribe someone who doesn't worship money. You can't control someone who's already decided what they will and won't sacrifice. And that realization, spreading across enough people, would collapse the entire architecture of modern control. Let me tell you why this matters to you specifically. You've been lied to about what makes someone powerful. They showed you billionaires and told you that's power. Wrong. They showed you politicians and told you that's influence. Wrong again. They showed you celebrities and told you that's freedom. Completely backwards. Real power, the kind that actually matters when you're lying in bed at 3 in the morning questioning your entire life, isn't about what you have. It's about what you don't need. Let that sink in for a second. The person with the most power in any room isn't the richest. It's the one who needs the least from everyone else in it. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. You've been programmed since childhood to believe the opposite. Every cartoon, every movie, every story, every advertisement, every Instagram post, every YouTube video about success, they all taught you the same lie. Accumulate more, become more. More money equals more power. More possessions equal more happiness. More status equals more respect. It's so deeply embedded in your psychology that you probably felt resistance just hearing me question it. That resistance? That's not you. That's the programming defending itself. Stay with me here, because this goes deeper than you think. There are 3 pillars that actually create freedom, and money isn't one of them. Health, education, wealth. And before you say, wait, you just said wealth, let me clarify something crucial. Wealth and money are not the same thing. Money is paper, numbers on a screen, a tool for exchange. Wealth is options, time, freedom from dependency. You can have millions and be completely impoverished, trapped by lifestyle, trapped by image, trapped by the need to maintain appearances. Where you can have modest means and be extraordinarily wealthy, free to choose, free to refuse, free to live according to your actual values. This distinction changes everything. But let's start with the first pillar that nobody wants to talk about honestly. Health. Not the Instagram version. Not the "I go to the gym sometimes" version. Not the "I take vitamins" version. Real health. The kind that makes pharmaceutical companies nervous. Because here's something nobody in power wants you to understand. A healthy population is an ungovernable population. Think about it. Sick people are profitable. Sick people are desperate. Sick people will accept any terms just to feel normal again. The healthcare industry doesn't make money from healthy people. It makes money from sick people who stay sick just long enough to keep buying solutions. That's not a conspiracy. That's just basic economics. So when you meet someone who's genuinely healthy, who's invested years into understanding their body, who eats real food, who moves daily, who sleeps properly, who manages stress effectively, you're meeting someone who's removed themselves from an entire system of control. They're not afraid of getting sick because they've stacked the odds in their favor. They're not desperate for the next pharmaceutical solution because they address the root causes. They're not vulnerable to fear-based health marketing because they understand how their body actually works. This person has reclaimed something precious, biological independence. And the system hates this, not because they're anti-medicine, not because they're reckless, but because they're no longer a reliable customer for the sickness industry. A genuinely healthy person doesn't panic at every symptom. They don't rush to medicate every discomfort. They understand their body's signals and respond appropriately. This level of body literacy is rare because it's not taught. It's not profitable to teach. But once you have it, you've removed yourself from a multi-trillion-dollar industry that depends on your ignorance and fear. Now let's talk about the second pillar, education. And I don't mean the kind you buy with student loans. I mean the kind that makes you dangerous to manipulate. There's a reason why the education system teaches you what to think instead of how to think. Critical thinking, pattern recognition, logical reasoning, financial literacy, psychological awareness, media literacy. These skills aren't emphasized. They're actively discouraged because an educated population, truly educated, asks uncomfortable questions. They see through political theater. They recognize manufactured outrage. They spot logical fallacies in advertising. They understand when they're being manipulated. They can't be easily herded into tribal thinking. This is catastrophically threatening to any system that depends on keeping people predictable. So what passes for education now? Memorization, compliance, standardization, credential collecting. You're taught to be a good employee, not a free thinker. You're taught to follow instructions, not question authority. You're taught to compete within the system, not examine whether the system itself makes sense. But here's what happens when someone educates themselves, truly educates themselves. They start seeing the game clearly. They recognize that most news is designed to trigger emotion, not inform. They understand that most marketing is selling inadequacy, not products. They realize that most financial advice is designed to keep them consuming, not building wealth. They see that most career advice is about making them better employees, not freer people. This clarity is its own form of wealth, because once you see the patterns, you can't unsee them. And once you can't unsee them, you stop playing along. You stop clicking the outrage bait. You stop buying things to fill emotional voids. You stop sacrificing your life for a retirement plan that might never come. You start asking different questions. Better questions. Questions like, who benefits from me believing this? Questions like, what am I actually trading my time for? Questions like, is this what I want or what I've been told to want? These questions are dangerous. Not to you, to the systems that depend on you not asking them. When you develop real education, you start noticing patterns everywhere. You notice how every news cycle follows the same formula. Outrage, fear, division, repeat. You notice how every product promises transformation, but delivers temporary satisfaction at best. You notice how every political campaign uses the same emotional manipulation tactics regardless of party. You notice how social media is engineered to keep you scrolling, comparing, envying, raging. You notice how the financial system is designed to keep you in debt, how the food system is designed to keep you sick, how the entertainment system is designed to keep you distracted. And once you notice these patterns, you can't participate in them the same way anymore. You become immune to most forms of manipulation. Not because you're cynical, but because you're clear. You see the game for what it is, and seeing it changes everything. This is why true education is so threatening. It creates people who can't be easily controlled. People who ask, why? When everyone else just accepts. People who see through the theater when everyone else is captivated by the performance. People who recognize manipulation when everyone else is being manipulated. This is intellectual independence. And combined with health, it's already formidable. But there's one more pillar that completes the picture. Now the third pillar. Wealth. Real wealth. Not the performance of it. Here's something that's going to make some people angry, but it needs to be said. Most people who look wealthy are actually trapped. The big house? Mortgaged. The nice car? Leased. The designer clothes? Credit card. The exotic vacation? Financed. The confident smile? Medicated. It's a performance. An elaborate, exhausting, expensive performance. And the moment the income stops, the entire illusion collapses. That's not wealth. That's a very expensive prison. Real wealth is boring, unsexy, invisible. It's money saved instead of spent. It's investments growing instead of depreciating assets. It's skills that generate income instead of credentials that require income. It's a paid-off home instead of a house you're one recession away from losing. It's time freedom instead of time poverty with nice things. The person with real wealth doesn't look wealthy. They drive a paid-off car that's reliable but unimpressive. They live in a modest home in a good area. They wear comfortable clothes, not status symbols. They take vacations they can afford without going into debt. They work because they want to, not because they have to. And this drives consumer culture absolutely insane. Because their entire business model depends on people buying things they don't need with money they don't have to impress people they don't like. When someone opts out of that cycle, they're not just saving money. They're removing themselves from the entire control mechanism. You can't manipulate someone with keeping up with the Joneses pressure if they don't care what the Joneses think. You can't create artificial urgency with limited time offers if they're patient and strategic. You can't make them desperate for the next paycheck if they have 6 months of expenses saved. This is financial immunity. And when you combine all three, health that makes you biologically independent, education that makes you intellectually independent, wealth that makes you financially independent, you create something the modern world has no protocol for. A person who can't be controlled, not because they're fighting the system, but because they've simply stepped outside of it. They're not angry at it, not rebelling against it, not trying to burn it down. They're just not participating in the parts that don't serve them. And this quiet non-compliance is more threatening than any revolution. Because revolutions can be fought. They can be suppressed. They have leaders to target and movements to discredit. But what do you do with millions of people who just quietly say no, thanks, and walk away? You can't arrest them. They're not breaking laws. You can't shame them. They're not doing anything wrong. You can't scare them. They've already secured what matters. You can't buy them. They don't need what you're selling. This is the nightmare scenario for every system built on dependency. And it's already happening. Right now, there are people reading this who've already started. They've started meal prepping instead of eating out constantly. They've started exercising daily instead of hoping for a pharmaceutical solution later. They've started reading books instead of scrolling feeds designed to agitate them. They've started learning skills instead of just collecting credentials. They've started saving aggressively instead of consuming to cope with stress. They've started building real wealth instead of performing fake wealth. And they're noticing something interesting. They're calmer, clearer, more grounded. While everyone around them is frantic, stressed, desperate, they're increasingly peaceful. Not because their life is easier, but because they're no longer fighting battles that don't matter. They're no longer trying to impress people they don't respect. They're no longer sacrificing their health for a career that doesn't care about them. They're no longer pretending to be someone they're not to fit into a system that was never designed for their benefit. They're just done with all that. And once you're done, genuinely done, something shifts. People notice, not because you're trying to be noticed, but because your energy is completely different. You're not competing. You're not comparing. You're not complaining. You're just present, calm, solid, and in a world of chaos that stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. People are drawn to it without understanding why. Your boss notices you're harder to pressure. Your friends notice you're harder to influence. Your family notices you're harder to guilt trip. Marketers notice you're harder to sell to. Not because you're being difficult, but because you're clear about what matters and what doesn't. You've drawn boundaries around your health, your time, your energy, your attention, your money. And you defend those boundaries calmly, but absolutely. This clarity is magnetic. And it's also threatening because it forces everyone around you to confront their own lack of it. When you stop chasing status, people who are still chasing it feel judged. When you stop consuming mindlessly, people who are drowning in debt feel exposed. When you stop complaining about your health while doing nothing about it, people who are neglecting their bodies feel uncomfortable. You become a mirror, and most people don't like what they see in that mirror. So they'll try to pull you back. You're no fun anymore. You've changed. You think you're better than us? Life's too short to be so strict. These aren't genuine concerns about you. They're discomfort about themselves. Because your choices highlight their compromises. Your discipline highlights their excuses. Your freedom highlights their trapped state. And that's hard to face. But here's what you need to understand. This resistance is proof you're on the right path. If everyone supported your choices, you know you weren't actually changing anything significant. The resistance is the system defending itself through the people still trapped in it. And you have a choice in that moment. Go back to sleep. Go back to being manageable. Go back to being predictable. Or keep going. Keep building your health. Keep expanding your knowledge. Keep growing your real wealth. Keep becoming freer, not louder, not more aggressive, not more confrontational, just freer. And here's what happens when enough people make that choice. The entire game changes. Businesses can't sustain themselves on mindless consumption. Healthcare systems can't sustain themselves on chronically sick patients. Educational institutions can't sustain themselves on credential mills. Political systems can't sustain themselves on manufactured division. Financial systems can't sustain themselves on debt-trapped citizens. The whole structure has to evolve or collapse, and that evolution benefits everyone, even the people who resisted it. Because a world of healthy, educated, financially stable people is better for everyone. Less disease, less desperation, less manipulation, less violence, less anxiety, more creativity, more innovation, more cooperation, more genuine progress. But it starts with individuals making different choices. Not dramatic ones, simple ones. Choosing the salad over the fast food. Choosing the book over the Netflix binge. Choosing the investment over the impulse purchase. Choosing the morning workout over the snooze button. Choosing the difficult conversation over the comfortable lie. Choosing the long-term benefit over the short-term pleasure. These choices, repeated daily, compound into something extraordinary. Not success in the traditional sense. Freedom in the truest sense. And once you have that freedom, you realize something profound. You were never supposed to get here. The entire system was designed to keep you one paycheck away from panic. One health crisis away from bankruptcy. One job loss away from desperation. One mistake away from ruin. Because desperate people accept any terms. Desperate people don't ask questions. Desperate people are governable. But free people are wild cards. You can't predict them, can't control them, can't rely on them to play their assigned role. And that's exactly what the world needs more of. Not chaos, not rebellion. Just people who've remembered that they have a choice, who've realized that the game is optional, who've understood that freedom isn't something you buy, it's something you build. One healthy meal at a time, one learned skill at a time, one saved dollar at a time, one boundary at a time, one truthful choice at a time, until one day you wake up and realize you're not afraid anymore. Not of losing your job, not of people's opinions, not of missing out, not of being different. You're just free. And that freedom, that quiet, unshakable freedom, is the most dangerous thing you can be. Not dangerous to others, dangerous to every system that depended on your fear. So here's the real question, the only question that matters. Are you going to keep playing the game that's slowly destroying you? Or are you ready to become the type of person this system doesn't know what to do with? Someone who chose health over convenience. Someone who chose knowledge over entertainment. Someone who chose real wealth over fake status. Someone who chose freedom over fitting in. The choice is yours. It's always been yours. They just convinced you it wasn't. But now you know. So what are you going to do about it?